Hello, Chris Dvorak here again with another video intended to share my experience as the Charles Evans Principal under Andy Davis, the current Ardmore City School Superintendent. Hopefully, you've watched the first video and were able to spend a little time reading the extended timeline document. A link to that document is also posted in the description of the video you're watching now for your convenience. It's a thorough account of events from February 2024 to May 2025 that details the obstruction of my ability to address staff misconduct, the establishment of discriminatory staff accountability, and a grievance side channel for select staff by Superintendent Andy Davis while I was the Charles Evans Principal. This led to the destruction of a school culture, and it emboldened several staff to commit offenses of student mistreatment. It was for these reasons that I confronted Andy about his actions on April 30th, 2024, and it was for that confrontation that he told me to resign or be terminated. After some thought, I signed a resignation agreement waiving my right to due process or to hold the district legally liable for any wrongdoing. So now, I'm sharing the story as my moral obligation requires with those who care about Ardmore City Schools. It's my moral and ethical obligation to do what I'm doing, and I hope that today's video compels others to do what is morally and ethically prudent. I want to thank this entire community for the overwhelming demonstration of support after sharing my first video. It's been touching to see. Thank you. I've just tried to treat people like my parents taught me to. It's important to keep the information in these videos informative. I want to remind everyone that I'm not trying to make a case to get my job back. This isn't some rant against my former employer to save face. This isn't some dopamine-fueled social media beef. These are not my motivations. I'm simply standing up for the same thing I stood up for on April 30th in my message to Andy, the same message that cost me my job. I still have a moral obligation to tell the story of discriminatory practices and the dereliction of preventing and addressing student mistreatment that I witnessed. In case there is some confusion about what I'm doing, please rest assured that it's virtuous. Virtue is what led me to join the Army Infantry after 9/11. It's why I decided to become a teacher. It's why I've been married for 25 years. It's why I cashed out my entire life savings to build a house on the family farm that I'll never be able to sell. It was virtue that led me to confront the unprofessionalism that I encountered at Charles Evans so that the staff and kids weren't held hostage in a toxic culture. And the many, many people whose selfish decisions caused this had the choice to be virtuous instead. All of those improper acts were deliberate choices. In this video, I'll walk you through a few email threads from last school year that evidence conversations between me and Andy, which involved two separate situations with two different teachers, one from October and one from February. One teacher's white, one is black. So this isn't about the color of their skin. It's about the content of their, say it with me, character. More importantly, his. The point is not to highlight the actions of the teachers themselves, although their actions are awful in their own right and help paint the picture of what kind of staff conduct was protected. What I'd like to illuminate to concerned parents, staff, and citizens is how my request to firmly address teacher misconduct was delayed and ultimately denied by Andy Davis at different points in the year. I'll show you hard evidence of a pattern of non-action from Andy Davis. Let's begin with teacher one, shall we? I'll highlight the important parts as we go along. If you try to read ahead, you may miss some of what I say. You might go back and read through on your second watch. That's up to you, of course. The benefit of this particular email is that it's before Andy fully realized that email was not ideal for protecting teachers. Later, he'd use phone calls or in-person conversation. So I captured a nugget here. You can see here that this is a draft of a PDP, that is a personal development plan. It's the formal write-up tool of the TLE, Teacher Leader Effectiveness Evaluation System. Please excuse the acronyms. In each of these Google-based email threads, you'll see the number of messages. That is the original email plus the replies. We have 4 in this thread. You know that I'm showing you the entire thread and not leaving anything out. Here I tell Andy that I would like to get this PDP to her tomorrow before we leave on fall break. The next day is a Monday, and it's a short week due to it being the week of fall break. Believe it or not, this is going to be her second PDP. You can see we can't fit all the reasons why on one sheet of paper. The first came in September. The improper conduct for the September PDP Those were resolved through a mediation and a follow-up meeting to close it out, so they weren't even included in this one here. I won't go into these in detail except to point out the last one: deliberate violation of the ACS grievance policy. I know I'm blocking it there, but you can finish it out here. Even in your capacity as AEA representative, you have encouraged others to violate board policy related to employee grievances. I go ahead and provide her the board policy on formal grievance procedure for certified staff. This is as much for Andy as it is for teacher one, seeing that he'd met with a select group of teachers on October 9th. None of those teachers, save one, had met with me prior. Here's Andy's reply. He says, I would wait to give her this PDP until we have a chance to talk and after fall break. Tension is very high in your building at the moment, and I think we need a chance for cooler heads to prevail until we get back from break. Hopefully Tuesday we can sit down and discuss the situation. Yes, tension was high for a small group of teachers who were now being held to account. That's where the tension was. Everybody else took comfort knowing that the principal was addressing misconduct. I didn't have to wait until Tuesday to meet with Andy. We met on Monday, October 21st. That's when he told me that teachers 1, 2, 3, and 4 would now have a mentor to manage their conduct. Someone else would be doing that part of my job. And it would be up to me to figure out how any of it would work on my end or how it would jive with accountability for everybody else. It was designed to put some indefinite force field between them and me. Cooler heads look like they were going to prevail pretty well if you read the draft or the write-up. That's about as cool a head as can be articulated when you're addressing the childish unprofessionalism that sought to devour the entire school culture and completely usurp the school principal's authority. What he meant to say was, let me undermine you here so that the complete subversion of the principle will prevail. This PDP would never be given to her, nor would she face any admonishment at all until after I was fired and Andy had to mop up. She, along with several others, leveraged the threat of racial discrimination, and Andy, in turn, provided them a discriminatory bubble away from the principal. Look here. Look at the signature, Andy, right? Remember that. It'll come up later. Okay, so I haven't talked at all about student mistreatment. So let's look at a situation involving teacher X. At this point, I had already formally admonished teacher X for smacking a student in the mouth. I issued teacher X a PDP in September 24, which required her to inform the parents of her actions and apologize and undergo remediation related to de-escalation. I used material from Conscious Discipline, a program that emphasizes discipline with composure and respect. All of the violations you see definitely go against codes of conduct for teachers. This kind of student mistreatment is never right. But those offenses may not qualify for criminal abuse. Corporal punishment is a good example to use as context. So I don't want those two levels of misconduct to be conflated. An incident of student mistreatment doesn't automatically require the cops to be called, but it does require action from an administrator. After Andy and Director X tried to use Jedi mind tricks on me to tell me the mouth smack wasn't that bad, despite an audible sound heard by the witness who described the student as being slapped in the mouth hard, and the student seen rubbing his mouth after the initial shock on the archived video footage, I wrote her up anyway. The second offense was when she grabbed the arm of a student in lunch line. When the student resisted, she placed him in a full body restraint while he was fighting to get out of the hold. Andy decided that she would receive no consequences for physically escalating the incident and directed me to suspend the student for 5 days. Now we arrive at incident 3 in this email. Teacher X was returning the student back to his homeroom after a pull-out intervention. The same student from the incident in the cafeteria, incident 2. The student takes his time returning to his classroom seat because he knows she's standing there watching him like a hawk. Teacher X can't take it. She walked over and grabbed him by the arm. He flopped. Then she dragged him out of the room and into the hall, then grabbed his chin to force him to look her in the eye. After this happened, Teacher X called Director X and they made plans to meet with the student's parents to require him to be put on a behavior plan. I said no to that. Teacher X had provoked and escalated situations with his kid, and that was what needed to be fixed before we even thought about a behavior plan for the student. Her conduct needed to be resolved to give the kid a fair shot before I was willing to consider it. Director X replied in an email, CCing Andy, that she and Teacher X were going to put him on a behavior plan anyway, despite never collaborating with the principal, the assistant principal, or the homeroom teacher. So this is the situation that brings us to the email I sent to Andy about Teacher X's conduct. You can see that the subject line is clear. This is about inappropriate student contact. 2 messages in this thread, right? So there's only 1 reply to this email. This is important. I've made sure to include Andy and Morgan as assistant to make sure someone gets eyes on this. This email was sent on February 3rd. That was a Monday. All right. I'd like for you both to be aware of these 2 incidents involving the same teacher and student. Of the saved videos in the CCTV 24-25 folder, Teacher X is involved in 3 to date. All 3 are inappropriate conduct with a student. 2 of those involve blank, the student who Director X and Teacher X have decided needs a behavior plan without the collaboration, agreement, or participation of me, Autumn, or the classroom teacher. So there were actually 2 preconditions that I asked to be worked on our end, school's end, before considering a behavior plan for the student. Not to bog you down with detail, but his homeroom teacher had been too forgiving. There were smaller consequences or teacher actions that needed to be more consistent to provide structure and predictability. This is something that every new teacher needs time to work on, being firm early. The other precondition being, as I stated earlier, that Teacher X's inappropriate engagement of the student, those need to be addressed and corrected. Something that a seasoned teacher shouldn't need a single second to work on. You don't escalate a situation. That is Teacher 101. Her, meaning Director X, was that they were going to go ahead and meet with his mother and unilaterally put him on a behavior plan despite my directive / request that they not. She's just going to bully it on through. Chris doesn't run anything. So links to the videos of Teacher X's second and third incidents are provided here. The IT guys name the videos. Notice that I include the video of the incident 2, which was the lunch line grab and restrain. I wanted to make the connection for Andy that his prior decision not to discipline her for incident 2 led to incident 3. I end with, I'd like to admonish Teacher X for engaging blank student in a way that escalated the situations. I want to be in step with you both. Let me know what you think. Thanks. Look how sad that sounds. I want to be in step with you both. Man, how deferential. What a good boy I'd become. This lets you know that the steps were not as clear as they should be. I make my intention clear that she needs to be admonished, and I want to do it. She's now been involved in 3 incidents of student mistreatment. It's been 3 days and there's no other message to follow. See, I never hear back from Andy on this email. I want to also point out that the signature is Mr. Davis without a space, not Andy. Almost like there are two different accounts. And I'm not counting the personal YouTube account, Rubber Duck, that Andy altered to post negative comments on my first video. There seems to be two different Andy Davis work email accounts. By the way, this Teacher X situation is one where a principal should be acting autonomously and decisively when disciplining a teacher for these kinds of things. You can just see how tentative I am here. This was my 10th year as an administrator. Why a principal needs to ask permission to admonish a teacher that's just dragged a student out of class and grabs his chin to force eye contact is very telling of the situation here, and the fact that I speak to his assistant on it as well, in step with you both. I can't act autonomously, even when it's crystal clear what is objectively right and within the principal's authority. I'm asking him to let me do something that should be a no-brainer. He doesn't even answer. He's avoiding the issue. Teacher X is protected. God knows why. Okay, I sent another email on February 21st asking for an update on Teacher X's discipline. There was a lot in February between my first email and this one here. The student mistreatment incidents with teachers 3 and 4, the director meeting that was staged to look like Andy was supporting me in autumn, where he said we were going to get sued when I passionately asserted that these teacher misconduct incidents were happening because he wouldn't let me address staff discipline like a principal should. There was still nothing on Teacher X, so I sent another email to him here. I push on this, not letting it slip away or be forgotten like he's hoping. He thought my morale and will to even care about staff discipline would be extinguished altogether. Here it is. Were you able to have the conversation with Teacher X? He called me on the phone after I sent this email. He watched the video. I remember telling him, man, just let me fire her. Just let me fire her. He replied with his trademark white noise drivel that let me know that Teacher X was off the hook again. He asked me to have a conversation with her and tell her not to intervene in student misbehavior issues again. That was it. I reply, I did speak with her. She received the directive with as much grace and humility as one could hope for. That was sarcasm. She showed no grace. It was definitely not an apology. The only teacher or director to ever apologize for anything was Teacher 4. Not a single other person that participated in this situation has ever apologized for any of it. Not even after I lost my job for standing up against this stuff. Not a single other apology. Friends of Ardmore City Schools, I hope that these emails demonstrate that my commitment to address teacher misconduct was met with delay and denial from the superintendent. It's my moral and ethical obligation to share these, and I hope that others are compelled by their moral and ethical obligations. The pacification of the superintendent provided fuel and safe harbor to the teachers and directors whose malevolent self-interests destroyed the culture and learning environment at Charles Evans and put children at risk of individuals who were enabled and emboldened by his obstruction of a principle that demonstrated the will to eliminate those threats. His pacification encouraged future misconduct. When you go light on intolerable conduct, you encourage future misconduct. Leaders figured that out a long time ago. Parents, remember, we have to unite and organize to build the school system we want for our kids, the Ardmore we want. Thank you for watching. Remember to check the description of this video for the extended timeline and other documents.